with Mr. Limata. He will be starting soon. Oh, story time with Mr. Limata, where all your dreams come true. Oh, he brings to life your favorite stories with a great big smile. You won't leave lonely, won't you start all the reading? I just can't wait to hear it. Story time with Mr. Limata. He will be starting soon. Oh, story time with Mr. Limata, where all your dreams come true. Oh, he brings to life your favorite stories with a great big smile. You won't leave lonely, won't you start all the reading? I just can't wait to be hearing.
Good morning and welcome to Story Time. Thank you for joining me. Happy Friday to you and your loved ones and everybody else that is joining in today. Thank you for being here and welcome to Story Time. I hope you're ready for a wonderful story lined up for you today. And of course, our fabulous guest, Angela Kunkel. Thank you so much for joining in today. I am glad you're here with us. And of course, I am so honored to have Angela here with us on Story Time. Of course, doing a reading of a very special book, Digging for Words. Let's find out what that one is all about. I'm sure some of you already remember it. And this one is Jose Alberto Gutierrez and the library he built. So please stick around and join in for that. And also a wonderful conversation to come after that. And as always, let me know where you're joining us from and who is joining in with you. Thank you so much for joining in Storytime. Welcome. Let us know where you're joining us from. Thank you. Good morning to you, Amanda. How are you doing today, Amanda West? And of course, Sarah and Nathan. And you're saying in sunny and blue-skied Illinois. I love that. I love that description. Thank you so much for joining in. And you definitely are bringing the sunshine to us today. Thank you for being here. Good morning to you. And Sarah and Nathan, always a pleasure having you here on Story Time. Good morning to you, Amanda Waltman. How are you doing today? The two Amandas in the house. Thank you so much for joining in and say happy sunny Friday from Baby Bia. Nate, good to see that you're back. Thank you so much for joining in. Good to see you. In hot Seattle. Oh my goodness. Please do stay warm. Do stay cool. Do stay comfortable. Thank you so much for joining in. It's so good to see you. Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much. Nate, Baby Bia, Amanda, thank you and welcome. Thank you. Please, I hope you find ways to stay cool where you are. Thank you so much for joining us today. Good morning to you, Doreen. How are you doing? And you're still out in Tico, Guatemala to El Salvador. Your trip is still going well. Thank you so much for joining in. Rocco, how are you? Thank you for joining us today. Welcome to Story Time. Oh, love it. People coming in from all over and amazing books that take us all over as well. So thank you so much for joining in. I am glad you're here with me today. Good morning to you. Chris Mitchell Adams. Yes, we have your neighbor here today. Angela Kunkel is joining us very soon. How are you doing? Bowden out in Burlington, Vermont. Thank you for joining in. And you say, we love Digging for Words and so excited for today's story time. Well, you and me both. Thank you so much for joining in. Yes, indeed. Welcome to Story Time. And Ingrid joining us all the way out from Argentina. Thank you so much for joining us in Patagonia. Glad to see you here. I hope you're okay. And Ingrid, congratulations on your first round of vaccines. Yes, I hope you don't have too much of an adverse reaction. Thank you so much for joining in and congratulations and welcome. And now, without much ado, please let me welcome to Story Time, Angela Kunkel. How are you doing today?
Hi, I'm great. Thank you so much for having me, Mr. Limata. I'm excited.
Pleasure, an absolute pleasure. Thank you, just introducing us to this wonderful book. and your amazing work. And I can't wait to talk about it a little bit more. And if you're listening, please out there, remember to prepare your questions if you have any for Angela. But yeah.
Yeah, and I think what you're doing is amazing too. I love that you're sharing stories, and you have such a range of awesome books and authors, and so I am super excited to be here.
Oh, thank you. Well, and I hope you're enjoying your summer, the beginning of your summer.
I am. I'm in Vermont.
It goes much later than ours.
Yeah, our school year goes later. We just got out, but it's sunny, and we went strawberry picking yesterday into the pool. So we're getting summer started. Yeah. We're jumping right in.
Right. Yeah. All right. Well, we have people out there here for a wonderful story and here to hear you read. So I'm excited for that to be read to today.
Absolutely. Should we start with the read aloud?
Yes, absolutely. Okay. And then we'll come back for that.
Yeah. So I have a copy of the book here too. And I want to tell people who are bilingual that there's also an edition available in Spanish as Rescatando Palabras, and there's a French edition, although I have not seen it yet. But if your family, so if your family speaks more than one language, there are other editions available. I'm going to be reading from the English today, and I'm going to share my screen so that you guys can see all the details in Paola's beautiful, beautiful illustrations. And Mr. Limata, can we see that okay?
No.
No? Okay.
No, not yet.
Let me try that again.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Well, also while you're sharing that, I'll just put out a few, in the comments, I'm putting out a few links so people can see where you can find Angela's work and some other items that she mentions on there where you can get yourself signed copies.
And you know what? It's telling me that I need to change too many settings. So I'm going to improvise and read from the book instead rather than keep people waiting. So this is Digging for Words, Jose Alberto Gutierrez, and the library he built. And it's written by me, and it's illustrated by Paola Escobar. And actually, before I begin, I want to show you guys like my secret favorite part, which you might not see in a library edition when it's taped down. But this is something called the dust jacket. And underneath is this very, very fun cover that Paola designed.
Whoa.
So it's Jose and his books. And then if you open it all the way up, it's like this trail of books.
I've had this book for a long time and I did not notice that.
Okay, yeah. These are the design details, right? That the amazing illustrators add to the stories. And I'll point out something else as we start reading. This is the beginning image. And you're going to see the street lamp and the trash and the books next to it. And when we get to the end, I'll show you the image at the very end. These are the amazing things that Paola did. But this is Digging for Words, Jose Alberto Gutierrez, and the library he built. In the city of Bogota, in the barrio of La Nueva Gloria, there lived two Joses. Little Jose stirs in his bed. The early morning light wakes him. He was dreaming of paradise. It is Friday, he realizes with a sigh. Almost Saturday. Until Saturday, he could ride his bike to school. He can sit and listen to Maestra as best he can. He can play football with his friends. The day stretches out before him, like the streets, like the hills. Tomorrow a wish he knows will come true. In the same neighborhood, a few streets away, another Jose understands long days too. He left school as a boy, his mama unable to afford it, and went to work as a bricklayer, digging earth with his hands, placing brick after brick until nothing became something. A wall, a building, a home. Still, he read with his mama every night. Un cuento at the end of a long day felt like paradise. Now, in the early evening light, as the first Jose rides his bicycle home, his mama calling him for dinner, the second Jose gets ready for work. He prepares his garbage truck for its route through the wealthier neighborhoods of Bogota. The engine rumbles to life. The headlights cut through the dark. Jose is a garbage man, and he collects la basura, the trash, from the streets of the city. He works all night until the sun comes up. Jose scans the sidewalks as he drives, squinting in the dim light. He searches the household trash for hidden treasure. Books! Some are stacked in neat piles as if waiting for Jose. Others take a bit more digging. Jose doesn't mind. He digs now because of El Primer Libro, that first book found long ago. When Jose first began work as a garbage collector, he spotted a thick novel in the trash, Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy. He dug it out and read it again and again, always opening to a faraway time and place full of steam trains, ballrooms lit by candlelight, sleighs gliding through snow. He found other books and read those too. Each was different, each its own world to discover. Finally, Senor Jose is finished with his route. The garbage truck winds its way through the wide streets, back to the more crowded part of the city, back to the garage. In the cab, next to him because it is precious cargo, rides a stack of almost 50 books. Thin, thick, worn, almost new. It is a stack, making a journey to join other stacks. An encyclopedia of animals A to Z, a book of fairy tales, a long novel well-loved. They all ride home next to Jose, their pages vibrating with the rumble of the engine. Jose walks home from the garage. He pauses on the step to unlock the door, balancing books in the crook of his arm. A few pages to read, a few hours to dream, and then it is a new day. Tonight he revisits Macondo, a magical village deep in the jungles of Colombia, and he is lost in a place where time moves by its own rules. At last, it is Saturday, Saturday, Saturday. Little Jose's legs carry him as fast as they can. As he runs through the neighborhood, other children join him. It's like a race, but they all will win. His feet touch the steps of paradise at last. Senor is waiting to greet them, smiling as he does every Saturday. Jose enters paradise to find stacks and stacks of books, stacked like the homes of their neighborhood. Libros rescued by Senor Jose. Everywhere, every corner is stuffed with them. Picture books for niños, classic stories thick with elegant covers, big textbooks heavy with their complicated subjects. Jose stays a long time, traveling among the high stacks, afraid to disturb them, hesitant to dig. Senor comes to find him. He holds up a book and smiles. Senor sits. Jose sits. The barrio quiets. The book opens. It opens to a place beyond the barrio, a place Jose cannot ride his bicicleta to. With each turn of the page, both Jose see something new, something different from the same streets and the same hills. Digging leads to more digging. At last, little Jose makes his own selección with a nod and a shy smile and a gracias to Senor, and he's off, his feet flying back home, his hands flying through chores, through dinner, through washing his face and behind his ears, so he can climb into bed and inspect his new libro and devour the cuento inside, even warmer and more satisfying than his dinner. In the early morning light, little Jose stirs in his bed. The book is tucked under his pillow. He devoured it again in his sueños, dreaming of a lonely planet, a flower, a boy, a fox, the journeys they make. It is Sunday, he realizes with a sigh. He has to wait again a whole week, waiting in bed for the sun to rise, waiting for his friends to come and play, waiting once again for Saturday, waiting for Senor to open his doors where the libros sit, waiting on their shelves, waiting for Jose to come find them. And at the very end, there's an explanation of the library and the real Jose. So here he is on his nighttime route, collecting garbage and looking for books. And here he is in his library with children from his neighborhood. And there's a bit more information. But remember, at the very beginning, we had this. At the very end, we have this.
Whoa.
So when I do story time, I always, and maybe you guys can put it in the chat, I always like to ask kids, what changed? What do you think happened? And that's where I'm going to end the story, but that's digging for words.
Oh. Thank you. I see it. Thank you for that too, because I never noticed it. Now I'm paying attention. I was scrolling to the
So you know what's so embarrassing is you're so involved in this process with the author and the illustrator and the editor. I didn't notice it either.
How long did it take you before
you get your copies, and my kids who are 9 and 11 were like, oh, the books are gone. And I was flipping back, children notice so much more than we do as adults. And so my kids are the ones with the artistic eye who noticed it first.
That is awesome. And then just wondering too, was Digging for Words, was that the first title you landed on?
No, it was not. The first title was The Strength of Words, because Jose's library is called La Fuerza de las Palabras, which is the strength of words in Spanish. And so I wanted it to be a nod to his library that he started. And it wasn't the current editor, but I think I got feedback from another editor who was like, I'd like to see some different titles. And I was thinking about, when you go to a library or bookstore, you're really kind of digging, and he does on his route, right? He digs through to see which books are there. So that's where that came from.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Amanda.
So it was something I was thinking from the time we talked. I was like, well, I wonder if this was the first title, if it was something else. But yeah.
Titles are tough.
Also, just wondering too, like Jose, and as we get to talk about him a little bit more, is like, maybe I should start with that. Why did you think this story needed to be told?
I mean, I just think what he's doing is incredible, first of all. And there's lots of other video profiles of his work and lots of other news stories on his work if people are interested in. There's some listed in the back of the book that I used for my research. But my day job is as a school librarian. And so obviously I think books and literacy are important. But at the time that I started writing this, I was working in Albuquerque, New Mexico at a dual language school. A lot of our families are from Mexico. Different families have different immigration status. And part of that was either not having a familiarity with services like libraries, or being afraid to use public services because of immigration status. And so a lot of my job and my mission was to do outreach and get, students and families connected with books and library services and language services. And I just think he did that in his community in a way that worked really well for him. And Bogota has 10 million people. There's only 19 public libraries, and there wasn't one in his neighborhood.
I was actually thinking. like you have so much that information in the back there on in the author's note. You mentioned
Mhm.
that, and I was looking at that, and I'm like, oh my goodness, this is it's mind-boggling. But also when I think about it, in Zambia, like I remember libraries not being, like not really public libraries were not that prevalent. Like you had to go to the National
Yep.
Archives or, and I remember just as like I was telling you the other day, at my school, it was my elementary school was 8th through 9th. So it was what they call a basic school, but it goes 8th through 9th and then first through 9th and 1 through 7th, you could not use the school library because it was reserved for the senior students. And so it's just one of those things where it's like, yeah, like you might think books, but others don't have as much access. Or even just Ingrid, who's here today, was also telling me one time, she's in Patagonia, and she's just saying the distance that it takes books and things to get there, that she ends up getting books from England and so on. And it's just one of those things. So just, to that point.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think even, from the time that I moved out of the classroom into the school library, thinking about different policies that libraries have, in some schools, kindergartners aren't allowed to check out books until they learn how to take care of them. Or, some places still charge overdue fines, or some places allow students to check out books over the summer and some don't. And I think what we need to think about is, if that school library isn't there, if that school library is limiting the ways in which children can interact with books, how do you know where else they're going to get that from?
Right.
And so it's less about managing materials and making sure that the kids have that access and equal access. Yeah. So I just think that's such an important issue. And I think Jose's story really touches on a lot of that beautifully. Yeah,
no, absolutely. And then too, like just Jen Veda says school librarians are the best. I don't know about that, Jen Veda. That's my school librarian right there.
That's awesome.
Yeah, she's great. And many books that she's brought to me and just, like given me ideas. Even the other day, the last time we saw each other, she had 3 books. Like, oh, yeah, have you seen this one? You should try it. So yeah, love you lots, Jen. Thank you. And then too, just Ingrid just speaking to that, like getting books down there. But also I had I was thinking like you worked with Paola Escobar on this book. And how was that experience? And like, were there things? I mean, definitely you mentioned not the end papers that not expected.
Oh my gosh, I'm in awe of illustrators and what they do, because when you're working on a story, and like I write longhand in a notebook first and then I revise, and it's just black and white words and you're just reading it to yourself or your writing group and stuff, and then it becomes this beautiful thing where you can't separate the words from the art. And so Paola's amazing. And the first time I saw sketches, I cried because just she lives in Colombia, so she lives she has a familiarity with Bogota and all that I think really brought a lot to the book. But just some fun details that I think are so cool besides the M papers is the very first book that Jose found that kind of started his whole project was Anna Karenina. And when Paola did initial sketches, she had a different cover. But in my research, I had a screenshot of this book cover. And I shared it through our editor, and she incorporated the real cover of the real first book that he had.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and so there's little details like that are true to life that I think are really fun. This is really what his house looks like. So that's his real home, and the bottom floor is the library.
Wow, yeah.
And then one other really fun story I'll share with you about her illustrations is so this moment where they're about to open the book, and it is kind of this, like, this is the book that kicks it off for little Jose. So I wanted the next page to be a pirate ship or some sort of like pirate image. You
Yeah.
don't get to tell the illustrator what to draw. You're not the boss. So I didn't say anything like that. I did not have an illustration note. I didn't give any direction or ask our editor to tell her, because it's not my job. Paola's the artist. Look what she drew. Right? Isn't that weird that somehow we were on the same wavelength?
Yeah.
And the treasure on the island is a book. I don't know if, sorry, I'm reversed.
No, we can see you clearly.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But this little treasure that they're sailing towards is a book. And so the fact that somehow this was incorporated in this amazing page spread, which, you know, we had never communicated about, I just think is so cool. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, no, that's amazing. Wow. Wow, that's and I've seen, I mean, her work. I've, you know, followed her on Instagram and also just seeing amazing work, and it's so recognizable too.
Yes.
As I saw that, we just like, oh my goodness, yes.
And I want to give actually a plug for another book that she did, because I have it right here in front of me. And it's another library story.
Yes, I'm sure people will remember this one too.
Yeah, Planting Stories, which is the autobiography of librarian Paola Belpré.
Yes.
Now there's a book award named after her, but she was the first Puerto Rican librarian in the New York Public Libraries, and Paola illustrated this one as well. It's by Anika Denise, and this is a really cool story about how Paola Belpré, you know, opened up libraries for Spanish speakers, as she wrote folktales and presented story times in Spanish to reach out to those communities, which was really, really important, because that didn't exist before she did it. So another really beautiful book about libraries and book access with more beautiful art from Paola.
Right. Yeah. No, and I'm glad you brought that one too with you, because it is definitely one that I enjoyed, and I admire it too. And there's the work too that was done, and thinking about stories and representation and how important that is.
For sure.
Yeah. And then, you know, like just thinking too, like you wear many hats. You mentioned you're a librarian, you're an author, you're sort of parent. So how do those things come together? When do you find time to write?
When I can. Yeah. So a couple years ago, I have an amazing partner who's super, super supportive. And so I could not do it without his help, which is one important thing I want to say. Yeah.
Yeah. No, big shout out to those partners out there.
Yes. Sure. Yeah. It's an equal partnership. And he made a lot of like weekends going to conferences and talking to other writers and stuff. Like, his support really makes that possible. But I think I always wanted to write. I think I would get hung up on the time piece, and I would wait, like, well, I'm going to have more time later, like in the summer or when the kids are a little bit old, like, and it was always like waiting. And I went to a book event. It was a middle grade author, Lindsay Eager, and I asked her, because she's also a parent, I was like, well, what's your routine? Like, how do you manage all the time? And she was like, you just write. Like, she was very blunt with me. And that was the moment it clicked. And I'm so glad she said it to me that way, because I was like, oh, that's really what I have to do. And so I started getting up at 5 a.m. And so I try to write from 5 to 6 before other people are up, when the house is quiet and before those other commitments have to happen. I don't always, it's not a perfect system, but that was the routine I tried to get into, just to and it's also, I think it's why I like picture books, because it's a smaller scale. Like, I'm not sure I could pull off a whole novel and keep a whole novel in my head and revise it. I don't know how novelists do it, but I know, and I'm not saying picture books are easy, but I know I can go back to something that length and polish it multiple times.
I love them. I think it's so beautiful that we have that for kids and adults. I really encourage adults to read children's books. They're amazing. And just, I mean, the art, the writing, like even just now, like who thought today would be going to Bogota, you know, like, and just, so to be able to go on these journeys from the comfort of your living room, or, you know, like hopefully people are in comfort, but like at least from wherever you are, you know, like just
completely
being able to let you wonder. And Yeah.
And I don't, it might have been Jennifer Lawfren, who's a literary agent, but somebody was like, where else can you get artwork that looks like this for $20, right? There's amazing artwork in picture books. So, so just for the art and the visuals and there's so many picture books that are like art and poetry combined. And I think it's such a beautiful format. And I don't think it's limited to the littles. Like I work in a grade 7 through 12 school with high schoolers, and I share picture books with them when they'll let me, or encourage teachers to do it. Yeah. Because there's tons of great ones about moments in history. There's one about the Tulsa Massacre, which I think is awesome for older readers and a way to learn about that event. So I think picture books are for everybody.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I'm taking part right now in a summer institute with UC Berkeley here, and my presentation has a read aloud in it.
Nice.
It's all adults, but I think they will love it. I think it's important that like people get to see that, and also just a way of introducing them to new books, and hopefully they can take them to their schools and other people in their community. But it's just I love them so much. I think they're wonderful. Would you ever? Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Oh no, I was just gonna. I'm so glad that you have a read aloud component and that you're doing this, because I will say when I talk to adolescents, like studies show that there's a drop in reading interest in adolescents, right? And some of that is because adolescents are becoming more interested in their social life and other responsibilities. But some of it, like when I talk to them and I give them like a reading survey, sometimes they very specifically remember when people stopped reading to them. And a lot of them are really sad about it. So I don't think we're ever too old to be read to or to share stuff. Yeah, so I'm so glad that you're doing that and your program as well. That's awesome.
No, this is great. And it's so nice to have and initially it was like, oh yeah, the kids, make sure they get the stories. But then also I realized like sometimes you just have adults who are there just enjoying the stories and sharing their insight from their life experiences, and it makes it beautiful. It makes it more of a learning experience too, that we're all there enjoying this story. And I was just thinking too, like as you're writing and you have your new book coming out, let me see if I can just get to show everybody out there. You have your new work coming up, so and this is book 2, and would you ever, we want to know what it's about as well, but also just wondering, like, would you ever, like, would there come a time when you'd be like, oh, I think I'm going to go full-time writing?
Oh, I don't know. Like, I like being a librarian, and I think the two things like complement each other really nicely. So that's kind of the dream. We'll see. Yeah. Like, but I think it's also like it's a hustle for people, like folks that I know who are full-time writers or artists. Like it's a really big leap to make.
I would imagine.
So in a way, it's almost nice to have it be a really fulfilling thing, but not be a huge amount of financial pressure. Like it's a nice balance right now.
I've definitely heard friends. I have one friend, Victor, he can cook like one of the best, and like every time he cooks I'm like, this is restaurant grade A restaurant style food, but he's refused, like, no, I cannot do a restaurant because I think once it becomes work I won't enjoy it as much.
And I think that's always the question with creative work. And it's funny because we were talking about time before, right? And I always am like, oh, well, if I had more time, I'd be doing so many more books or more ideas and stuff. But I also think when you professionalize something, like when it's your the way you're supporting yourself and your family, there's that tricky balance or that line to walk between like what you love and then trying to earn a living from it. It's a little scary. Who knows? That's a non-answer.
No. It's it is one of those things like that. We'll do projects that just grow and they go. Take on lives of their own, and you're like, I take that leap, and there's always this, like thinking around. It's like,
Yeah.
Do I want to do that? Am I able to do that? So yeah, no, I was just curious about that. And then too, just like going back into this other book, Digging for Words, before we talk about the new one. Jose describes finding that first book as the little book that set the flame.
Yes.
What was that little book for you that set the flame, or what was it then?
Oh my gosh. Okay, when I was younger, there's so many, and it's so funny because I go blank on books when someone asks me a question like this. There's this book, it's probably out of print, but I remember being obsessed with it, and I have a copy somewhere behind me.
Yeah.
It was called Goodbye Pink Pig. I think I got it at a Scholastic Book Fair. And it was about a girl who collected like miniature figurines, and she would enter their world and they would come to life. Oh. And it blew my mind. And I think I started a miniature collection.
Were you ever scared they would come to life, or did you want?
I think I was waiting for them to come to life. I think I was pretty excited about this whole idea.
Yeah.
And my mom bought me one for my birthday that was like very similar to one in the book. Like the book was like very intense and real to me for some reason. And then just, I mean, I loved so many Corduroy and Madeline and Anne of Green Gables. I mean, I remember reading the whole series and watching the mini series with my grandmother. Just so many moments like tied into just enjoying something. Yeah.
And then when did you decide it's like, okay, I'm going now to finally either put this book out or put pen to paper?
I mean, I will say that I've written on and off since I was like a little kid. I have pictures on my website of me writing as a child. And then I would start projects like even in adulthood and not finish them. And like I would hit a wall and it would get too hard. And it was actually when I went to that book event that I mentioned before, and I was like, you know what, I'm doing it. Like
I'm doing
I talk about it enough, and I go to other people's book events, and I, read other people's work. Like, why not at least try? So just like, it was kind of that light bulb moment where I was like, no, like it takes, other people have done this. It just takes the commitment and not like waiting for the perfect time that's not ever going to actually exist. So yeah, I just started drafting stuff. There's for people who are interested in writing, there's a great exercise in January called Story Storm, where it's Tara Lazar is the author who does it, but you're just generating ideas all month long, and you're just trying to generate an idea a day. And I think I wrote the first draft of Digging for Words in February, right after I practiced Story Storm. So it was just that practice of like your brain looking for what would make a good picture book and reading lots of picture books. And I think I wrote the first draft like in that 5 to 6 a.m. hour at a Starbucks, like before I had to go into work. And then I just started revising it and sending it out. Yeah.
And how long from that time to the time it was published?
I probably worked on it for a year, and then I signed with a literary agent, and this is unusual. I think I was very lucky with this book because she sold it fairly quickly, and then it took 2 years to come out. So we signed it in 2017, and then it came out in 2020 because the artist needs time to work and all that. Yeah. So they take a long time to produce.
Yeah. And even selecting the artist, right?
Yeah. And the editor had Paola in mind for this book, which I'm so lucky that she did, because I didn't know Paola's work beforehand. But I think that's unusual in that, like, there are people who do it for a long time and submit things for a long time, and so I think it was lucky in terms of time frame. But I also think I was really persistent, because if I got rejected by one agent, I had like 5 more on the list I would send it to. So like once that clicked for me, and like a nope wasn't going to deter me, I was just like, okay, well that's a no, so I'm going to send it to the next one.
And that's the spirit too. I hear that comes up a lot in almost everybody that we've had and had the chance to talk to. They've mentioned that, like that. rejection, that will happen. And just last time we had Emily Easton, and she was mentioning how, you know, she was written this book, but before, you know, like how main work is being in publishing. And so she's saying like how, you know, rejecting, and she's like a lot are rejected. And so just letting people know out there too that, yeah, you know, something might not work, but then eventually.
Yeah, I think that's completely it, because I think when I started writing seriously, I mean, I wrote like one picture book and started sending it out, and it's now I look at it, I'm like, oh, I'm so embarrassed that I sent that to people. But it's like it's a numbers thing. Like if you're generating enough ideas and you're writing enough and you're also reading enough and finding other artists whose work you admire, and kind of, you know, finding your voice or finding what works. Yeah, I mean, and it doesn't stop either. Like I have a second book coming out, but there's other things that have been rejected that aren't going to be books right now, and that's fine. Like it's just keeping going.
And you know, like you mentioned keep going, and then that same quote that I put out from Jose, where, you know, he talks about the flame that's, you know, the book that set the flame, but he also concludes by saying, and this snowball never stopped rolling.
Yes.
So just thinking about that, how some, you know, like you're saying now you've gone to the second book and it seems like this snowball is still rolling.
Yeah, and I think it is for Jose too, because for people who haven't read the back matter, like, so he, you know, started collecting books. They took over the first floor of his home. He opened that to children. He then got a van and has gone on to drive book donations to like schools and community organizations in really remote parts of Colombia. So he's still going too. So I think it's just kind of people have to find what they love and what their mission is, and just stick with it.
And then what about this one, Penguin Journey?
Okay, yeah, so this is a completely different book about penguins. It's for a slightly younger audience. It's very short. I think in total it's like 72 words. And the reason for that, we were just talking about like generating ideas and practice, right? I overwrite. My picture books are way too long at first, and like digging for words, I think the first draft was 2,000 words. It's way too long for a picture book, and I did cut. And so Penguin Journey, I was like, I'm gonna try to write a picture book in 100 words or less the first time. And I had no idea what I was gonna write it about. And the phrase waddle waddle popped into my head, and I was like, well, what's waddle waddle? Like waddle waddle's a penguin, right? How they
I mean, like, how did that phrase come?
I have no idea. Yeah. And so I just kind of wrote this repeating waddle waddle, and like the things that they would do is as they walk across Antarctica. It is nothing. The book that is going to come out is nothing like that now. Waddle waddle's not in the book, and now it's a rhyme. This is the revision and the persistence. So it's a nonfiction book, but it's very like lyrical and spare and poetic, and it's in verse. And it's the journeys that penguins make across Antarctica to their breeding ground, where they find a mate and hatch a chick, and then the mothers leave. Like as soon as the chick is hatched.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And they walk all the way to the feeding grounds, which is another really long journey. And they have to feed. And the whole time the father is holding the egg between their feet to keep it from freezing. They have this pouch that drapes over the egg through storms. And the fathers are not eating this entire time.
Yeah.
And then the mothers walk all the way back so that they have food to give the chick when the egg hatches. So it's very spare, it's very short. The watercolor illustrations are amazing. But it's, you know, all the things that parents go through to bring their chick into the world and become a family. Yeah. And I'm excited about it.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm excited about it too. When does it come out?
October 26th. And if anyone is interested in pre-ordering a copy, you can pre-order copies now.
Okay. And that would be, they can find it at
Yep, on the website. Yep, and indie booksellers have it listed already, and Amazon and everywhere else as well. Yep.
And can they do the same for this one? Getting signed copies? Would they have?
Yeah. It's on my website as well, but Vermont Bookshop, it's my local independent, and if they'll ship. So if anyone wants a signed copy of books, and you can just go through the Vermont Bookshop and leave a comment, who you want it personalized to, or any little message, and I'll drive down and sign it, and they'll ship it out.
Oh, awesome. Well, Angela, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun.
This is wonderful. I just, just learned so much about the book, and just even have a deeper appreciation for your project and, what your goal was with it. And I learned about, Jose Gutierrez from this book, and just, started then looking up YouTube videos and all these other things that are happening. And I like that there's he has an organization too that can do better. So there was one that you put there, End Book Desert.
Yep.
I thought that was really great for people who are out there and you would want to support. And also just wanted to mention too that this book we were reading, of course, with permission from SCHWARTZ and Wade, an imprint of Penguin Random House. Just a lovely, lovely book. Wonderful guest. And anything else you have for people out there who just want to, just learning about writing, or just books in general, like any words of wisdom for our little ones? We have our little ones, and then of course lots as well.
I would say for the writers out there, I'm just going to repeat what Lindsay Eager said to me, and just do it. Just put pen to paper and get started. And I think for the little readers, thank you for spending a Friday with us. I'm so glad that I was able to share the story with you all. Yeah, and keep reading this summer, whatever you are interested in. Yeah. No matter what it is.
Oh, thank you so much, Angela. And then Amanda, I see you're still there. I'm just saying, Nate, you heard about those penguin dads. So there's some, there's some goes. Oh, thank you. Yeah, no, and just just people just saying thank you out there. Ingrid is saying thank you out in Argentina, and
thank you, Ingrid.
And of course your neighbor there, Bowden and Chrissy.
I know, it's so funny that we're so close by and that we connected through. This is why the internet is amazing.
Right, absolutely. Oh no, I appreciate you so much for being here and just your amazing work. Looking forward to the penguins when they're out, reading about them, and thank you for your insight, your advice, and just like your calming nature too. Just it's really comforting. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, no, absolutely. I'll catch you on the other side in a second.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you everybody for joining in. That was Angela Kunkel joining us today, and of course we were able to share this lovely book, Digging for Words. And now there's another book coming very, very soon. Thank you so much for joining in today. And yes, Jen Veda, thank you for the reminder. Mahita Belkamanga, thank you so much for joining us out in Katete, Zambia. Thank you for joining us. And my greetings to the family as well. Happy Father's Day to the penguin dads of the world. Absolutely, Jen Veda, thank you so much. Nate, happy Father's Day. Everybody that was joining in and that will be joining in for the recorded session later. Thank you so much for joining in, and happy Father's Day to you. And of course, happy Juneteenth as well. Day of remembrance, a day of celebration, and yes, a day to really be learning history. And let's make sure that we're learning from it and make sure that as we move forward, we are making this world better. Thank you so much for joining me today. This has been Story Time. Our very lovely guest, Angela Kunkel, and the amazing books and work that she does. Thank you for sharing your insight and your love for books. Happy Friday to each and every one of you. Join me on Monday for another Story Time, amazing Story Time. And this time I will be joined by Ingrid, Miss Ingrid, joining us from Argentina for a live Story Time together. So look out for that and join me on Monday. See you next week for more stories. Have a lovely weekend wherever you are. And also just keep my family in your prayers. 2 people that I love the most tested positive for COVID. So just keep them in mind. They're out in Zambia. but we're here together, and it is through this community that we find strength and we keep strengthening each other. So thank you so much for joining me today. I will be back on Monday for more story time. Much love from me. Hugs and kisses to each and every one of you, and find that time to check in on your loved ones out there. Thank you so much. Much love from me. Bye-bye.
He will be starting soon. Oh, story time with Mr. Limata, where all your dreams come true. Oh, he brings to life your favorite stories with a great big smile. You won't leave lonely, won't you start all the reading? I just can't wait to be hearing story time with Mr. Limata. He will be starting soon. Oh, story time with Mr. Limata, where all your dreams come true. Oh, he brings to life your favorite stories with a great big smile. You won't leave lonely, won't you start all the reading? I just can't wait to be hearing. I just can't wait to be hearing. Brings to life your favorite stories with a great big smile. You won't leave lonely, won't you start all